Well, the Pac-12 era has unofficially but officially come to an end. Let's revisit the best memories for UCLA in the Pac-12.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, so now that when we record this podcast, we are just a couple of days away from the official entry for UCLA becoming a Big Ten member. Let's look back at UCLA's Pac-12 era. And to really put it into perspective, we're looking at the Pac-12 era, so Pac-12 only, at least for this episode. There's many swan song episodes, but UCLA Pac-12 era only. So not Pac-10, Pac-8, Pac-12. And we're only looking at matchups and exciting events that happened in the last decade plus against teams they are not playing anymore as a conference member, excluding Stanford and Cal. That'll have its own special episode. So think of it as part one. This is where we're going to start. We're going to go look at the Arizona schools first because, hey, UCLA, Arizona State, they've been conference members the longest, although we're keeping this to within the last 10 years. So let's think about this for UCLA versus Arizona State, right? For the Bruins, they've had their fair share of epic battles, whether it was in the Pac-12 tournament, in the finals in Las Vegas, whether the Bruins have had some epic battles with Lonzo Ball going against Arizona. When the Bruins actually went into the McHale Center, recently UCLA had a winning streak going into the McHale Center over a few years. It's blanking off the top of my head. Those, for me, would be some of the highlight moments for UCLA. And also, I think a highlight moment has to be when UCLA kicked Arizona's butt. Jonathan Franklin set the school's rushing record when he scored a touchdown against the Wildcats. Those are a couple of my basketball mixed with football, highlights, right? Basketball, the rivalry year in and year out has always been extended, right? That's why they're going to keep this rivalry going into years to come. UCLA will play the Wildcats close to Tucson or Los Angeles for many years. Tommy Lloyd and Mick Cronin have that on their mindset. That's why all the epic basketball games continue. And in the Pac-12 era, the college basketball on the West Coast pretty much ran through UCLA and Arizona. Now we're not going again and again. Arizona hasn't made a Final Four in a while. UCLA did make it to a Final Four in the Pac-12 era in 2021 under Mick Cronin. They did win the Pac-12 title in 2022, when they made it to the Sweet 16. And UCLA, Arizona, those memories just continue to go again and again and again. It's always been super fun when those two teams battle. But for me, I would think when UCLA with Lonzo Ball went into Arizona and took them down. That was a top-tier, fairly recent moment when the Bruins were able to keep going a winning streak in Arizona, and then Jonathan Franklin's touchdown run to break the rushing record for UCLA when they absolutely demolished Arizona in that one. Now let's take a look at UCLA, Arizona State. It's been a unique rivalry between the Bruins, UCLA, Arizona State, but for me, I'm going back a little bit, right? Basketball, they've had their battles, right? Football, I'm going back to 2011. First year of the Pac-12, right? First year the Pac-12 was together. USC was ineligible. They cheated. Whatever you want to say, who cares about the Heisman? USC, garbage. So that left the door open for a Rick Neuheisel-led team at the time to sneak in and go to the Pac-12 championship game, right? One of two berths UCLA was able to get into in the first 2 years of the Pac-12. UCLA had, at the time, after the first 2 years, the two most Pac-12 championship appearances. And that never happened again. UCLA playing number 18 Arizona State at the time at the Rose Bowl. a year where UCLA was up and down. They had Kevin Prince as their starting quarterback and didn't really know what was going to happen, right? UCLA against the then 6-2 Arizona State team, who was 4-1 in conference play, surging their way up the then BCS rankings. And all of a sudden, on November the 5th in 2011, UCLA upset the Arizona State Sun Devils 29-28, right? What happened in that game? That was a game the Bruins led at halftime. They were up 16-14, but it was 3 missed kicks by Arizona State's kicker, right? 3 missed kicks by the Arizona State kicker that led UCLA to victory with a late Derek Coleman touchdown run in the final minute of the ball game. It was a game where back and forth. I remember, I think Kirk Herbstreit on College Game Day had mentioned UCLA a long time ago in that 2011 season that the Bruins had an outside shot to be that Pac-12 South champion at the time when the Pac-12 conference was in divisions. So UCLA pulled off a near miraculous upset at the time where UCLA led for the majority of the game. They were down 14-6, came back, field goal, touchdown, went up at halftime, saying, let's go. Went up by 9 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Remember Nelson Rosario, king of the one-handed crazy catches from Kevin Prince? UCLA made what they needed to do. And then Derek Coleman scored a touchdown. And that led UCLA to a win over the Brock Osweiler-led Arizona State team. Revenge from the 2010 loss against the Sun Devils. And most importantly, vaulted UCLA into the driver's seat for their eventual Pac-12 South Division championship and their first ever Pac-12 championship game where the Bruins took on the Oregon Ducks. One of the big moments in UCLA-Arizona State football history where the Bruins were able to make it happen, upset Osweiler, and got the job done. Now, if you go to a few years later when the Bruins were with Brett Hundley, when they went to Tempe and won on a last-second field goal by Kaimi Fairbairn, right? UCLA was able to go on a big run and remember that last-second field goal? I forget what year it was. It's blanking off the top of my head. But they had that game where it was an Arizona State missed field goal. 2011 was defined. UCLA's run, we'll talk about it a little bit more later, missed kicks by Pac-12 kickers that allowed UCLA to get to the Pac-12 title game. And a couple of years later, or a year later, I forget when it was, when Kaimi Fairbairn hit the field goal to win the game with Brett Hundley at quarterback as time expired in a back-and-forth game against the Sun Devils. That was extremely exciting. Those are the games that hit my forefront. Now, you can also go to a Thursday night game when the Bruins had Ish Adams returning kicks for touchdowns. They destroyed the Sun Devils. And also last year, when, if you want to go on a sour note, UCLA should have fired Chip Kelly after that loss. All right, so intriguing memories. It's been a unique rivalry over the last decade where the team that shouldn't win probably has won in unique battles. The last game in Tempe, UCLA snuck out a victory and was able to get the job done. So it's been very fun to see how UCLA played the Arizona schools, large in part over the last close to 50 years as Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12 rivals. So UCLA got the job done, leading that to a Pac-12 in 2011 championship berth. Now, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Utah and Colorado. What has the Utah-Colorado rivalry been like? It's been a unique one, to say the least. Where are the mountain schools ranked? Because they were the two schools that were added for that decade plus. More fun games against Colorado and some unique highlights against Utah. Next on Locked On UCLA. You should be getting hyped up about the 2024 season, whether you're enjoying the Dodgers after the trade deadline, UCLA football. Gametime is the place to be to get your tickets when it comes to getting tickets that are prices that are declining going down closer to first pitch or to kickoff, because Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. You can get tickets faster and easier, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat. Those are important things. You're sitting there, you're like, where am I going to buy this ticket? I see this in the same spot in multiple places, but you're wondering what the price is. With Gametime, you don't have to wonder what the price is. Toggle on the feature that shows you the price you're going to pay before you pay for it. You're not going to sit there, have your card in there, and you're like, man, it's an extra $15. No, you don't got that with Gametime. And on top of that, you're not going to wonder what you're seeing from your seat, because you're going to get a view from where you're sitting whether it's the nosebleeds or first row, and you're going to know what's going to happen with Gametime. So check out Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Think about those warm, sunny days in the summer. They're here, right now. And you can fuel up for the hot days, for maybe those big time plans with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Goodness, when I eat, I'm messy and I need no prep because I don't really know what I'm doing. But I can also meet my wellness goals because there's options with the chef-crafted meals like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto because they are fresh, never frozen meals that are dietitian approved. And most importantly, for people who do things all the time, every day like I do, they're ready to eat in just 2 minutes, no matter how busy you are. Nutritious, great tasting meals. So here's the thing. From breakfast to desserts, you can treat yourself to restaurant quality meals with premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, blackened salmon. That all sounds yummy, right? You can keep your kitchen time to a minimum, ready in 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50. Again, use the code LockedOnCollege50 with the number 50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your second month. That's LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. All right, here we go. Second segment. We're focusing now on the Utah-Colorado series, right? It was only a decade long. There are quite a few trips to Salt Lake City that are memorable or not. There are some unique battles against Colorado. Here's where my thoughts are. Let's start with Utah. Utah was one of the key reasons why UCLA was able to make it to the 2011 Pac-12 championship game. Why was that the case? Well, ironically, you just have to look at the Colorado-Utah game, right? It was the end of the season. UCLA didn't seem like they would have an opportunity to make it to the Pac-12 championship. Utah heavily favored against Colorado. And yet, despite having a big-time favorite, UCLA, who was already a beneficiary of an upset win over Arizona State, who missed multiple kicks against the Bruins, their freshman kicker. You had the Utah kicker at the time miss, 3 to 4 kicks in a game where Colorado upset the Utah Utes, right? That was a game, and that's not a game that UCLA played in. That was a game the Bruins had to sit idly by, watching, and that let them eventually turn into the Pac-12 South champions. So you talk about missed kicks in 2011, right? That was the story in a 17-14 Colorado-Utah game. Colorado winning their third win of the year, first win on the road against a Utah team that had come in 7-4 and 3-4 overall, right? A miracle win for the Buffaloes because it was unexpected. Unexpected as I try to pull up the box score in this game. Overall, the kicking for Utah, they missed 3 field goals as well, including at the death when it came to a missed field goal, right? So Colorado, we have to thank for many things. And for Utah's loss, that vaulted UCLA into a prime spot for a Pac-12 championship. Now, the Bruins have gone on, won some surprising games in Utah. They've taken their fair share of ugly beatdowns, including this year in basketball. Some close games as well at home. But overall, UCLA has to thank for Lazar Stefanovic, everything in between. We're thankful for having played the Utah Utes. The Huntsman Center is a unique venue, but we do thank them for choking away that opportunity in the 2011 run to the Pac-12 South title for UCLA. That was huge. Absolutely huge. All right, now we look at the Colorado side, in my mind. One, the most packed game of the year last year for UCLA at the Rose Bowl was because of Deion Sanders, right? That was the big game. So we have to thank Colorado for upsetting Utah, the mountain rivals. We have to thank Deion Sanders and the hype machine for generating buzz with the UCLA uniforms, with Terry Donahue statue being unveiled a packed Rose Bowl. And I remember running into a former UCLA quarterback who went to that game saying, yeah, the vibe was there. It didn't end up happening for the rest of the season, but it's a similar vibe we're going to see with Pac-12 rivals, now turned Big Ten rivals. They're going to come to the Rose Bowl. There's a lot of teams that idolize the Rose Bowl, that love the Rose Bowl. They've never been because they haven't been here in 40 years. It's always been Michigan, Ohio State, someone else, Wisconsin. All right? So you're going to see a lot of teams spreading the love, traveling across the country late in season in November when it's cold and wet and weird in the Midwest. They're going to come to Southern California where it just simply is not that weather. Even as weird as our weather has gotten in Southern California, that is what we're going to get. And that was the vibe, the buzz we had in Pasadena with UCLA playing Colorado. The casuals came out, the Bruin faithful came out, even the Colorado faithful came out, and UCLA pummeled the Buffaloes. Despite doing their best to not do it as well as they should have, they got the job done. Now, UCLA has played some pretty fun games, like a 35-31 victory over Colorado. With Brett Hundley, UCLA played a game where they weren't supposed to be that close in it, but a double overtime affair. And hey, in college football, it's not often you get double overtime games since they instituted the rule about 3 decades ago. UCLA winning a double overtime game in Colorado. Back and forth they went. UCLA able to win a Pac-12 division championship because of Colorado's win over Utah. And last year, packing the Rose Bowl out, UCLA has won some high-scoring affairs against Colorado. And those are the games off the top of my head that stick out between UCLA and Colorado. And before we end this segment, this is what I'm going to talk about. The national championships won for UCLA in the Pac-12 era, right? This is Pac-12 sponsored sports, and years in the last decade plus that UCLA won national championships, which includes their first and only ever baseball title, right? Over a decade ago in Omaha with John Savage. You had beach volleyball winning a couple back-to-back in 2018, 2019. Gymnastics, remember those dynamic gymnastics years pre-COVID in 2018. Softball, the last team to dominate and beat Oklahoma in the Women's College World Series was UCLA when they beat Oklahoma in the championship series, right? That was when they had Jocelyn Alo and everything. UCLA had Garcia, and they took down the Sooners, and things just haven't been the same since. So UCLA, you count that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 championships and 2 women's soccer national championships, including a 2013 run to win one and a 2022 miraculous finish where they took down North Carolina in December in North Carolina, where UCLA scored a couple of miraculous goals late, winning in overtime to win the national championship. Right? That was a fun, epic affair in Marguerite Erozasa's first ever season as head coach of UCLA, and the Bruins ran the table to win the championship. So in those years, 7 championships in the Pac-12 era, right? 7 championships in some big-time sports, and that doesn't include all the other sports they won championships in or competed or made a Final Four, made a big run, made a big bowl game. That is specifically national championships for a school that had the slogan at one time, champions made here. In the Utahs and the Colorados, we thank you for fun trips to very cold weather cities, whether it be January for basketball, November for ice cold weather in football. Those have been entertaining battles. All right. Now, to end this podcast, we're going to end it with some of the more exciting games we've ever talked about. And I think you know what we're talking about. The Oregon States and the Wazoos, who remain Pac-12 conference representatives, but they've been left behind by the UCLA's and Big Ten rivals, by the ACC rivals of Stanford and Cal, and the Big 12 teams who left, right? Utah, Colorado, Arizona State. All right? So now let's talk about some of the best games. And mind you, UCLA, Oregon State, one clearly on my mind. And we all know the Wazoo game I'm talking about. So let's just enjoy it one more time. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 120 million plus parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Also, because with eBay Motors, you're not burning cash, you're going to be burning rubber. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, to wrap up this podcast, we're going to keep the Pac-12 memories coming, where we're facing off and talking about the two best games almost ever played in their respective sports, arguably, where UCLA against Wazoo, UCLA against Oregon State, and those are the two left Pac-12 teams, and we left them for the end for a reason. Now let's talk about flip of a coin. We're talking UCLA, Oregon State first. And no, we're not talking basketball. We're not talking football. We're talking about the craziest baseball game that probably has ever been played, at least recently in the college level. Pac-12 tournament was hardly a thing. What was like a 2-year thing in college baseball when they decided 2-3-year run for the college baseball Pac-12 tournament. And UCLA and Oregon State, if you've already forgotten it, played one of the most epic games you would ever see played. May 28th, I believe, 2022 is when UCLA won 25-22. The score alone is ridiculous. 25-22 in a baseball game, right? That could be a poor first half in basketball. That could be a unique scoring football game. That was a baseball game where UCLA was in the Pac-12 tournament, hoping and jostling for seeding, and knocked off a top-tier ranked Oregon State team with their tournament hopes on the line, though at least their Pac-12 tournament hopes, that is. They were up 7-2. This is a funny game where UCLA was down 2-0, up 7-2, and by the time the third inning rolled around and was done, it was a 7-6 game. And then it was 9-8 after 4 for Oregon State, who poured on runs, 5 in the 5th, 3 in the 6th, 2 in the 8th. And by the time the UCLA Bruins came up to bat in the bottom of the 9th, and if you know where I'm going with this, you're going to enjoy this again. If you don't, I'm surprised you don't. This is in UCLA lore. UCLA, in a Pac-12 tournament elimination game, was down 9 runs in the bottom of the 9th. 9 runs. They were down 21-12. 21-12. The first 9 hitters in the bottom of the 9th reached safely before an out was even recorded. 9 runs had come home to score, and there was still only 1 out recorded. Okay, they tied it at 21. Then you get to the 10th. Oregon State takes the lead again, 22-21. UCLA ties it on a controversial balk call, 22-22. And then a walk-off 3-run home run from Tommy Perez, a redshirt sophomore, blasting it over the left field wall, and UCLA went into the next game victorious with a wild, wacky 10-inning win after having trailed by 9 runs in the bottom of the 9th, trailing in the bottom of the 10th, and winning the most crazy, miraculous, wacky baseball game you've ever seen. In a game where UCLA already led by 5 runs and then found themselves trailing by 9. They just crushed the baseball. They had 25 hits, but Oregon State's 4 errors and a balk crushed their chances in this game. And for the hero, Tommy Perez, it was his first career home run, right? First career home run he hit as a Bruin. First career walk-off blast. First career home run. Entered the game in the 6th inning. He entered the game in the 6th inning as a defensive replacement when the game was still like under the 10s for both teams, and had 7 RBIs in 5 innings of action, more than double his career total. So the hero of the game had double his career RBI total, his first career home run, and 7 RBIs in 5 innings of work, and he came in the 6th inning and later. That doesn't happen. It's one thing if it's a blowout and the starter's not doing well, and the bullpen throws in, they're throwing a position player like you've seen nowadays in Major League Baseball. No, he came in a tournament game, defensive replacement, and crushed the ball for a UCLA win. If that's not legendary, a game that had 47 runs combined, 53 hits, over 520 plus pitches, 16 pitchers, and nearly 5+ hours. I think it was close to 6 hours, right? It was a wild game in the Pac-12 tournament that was unforeseen. And UCLA got the job done against Oregon State in arguably their best sport. And UCLA won at 25-22. Now, I'm not to say that should be any bigger, better, but what's as crazy was UCLA in 2019 on a cool fall autumn evening. The UCLA Bruins, winless at the time with Chip Kelly in his second year at the helm, DTR the starter. And remember, UCLA in 2017 had already come back down 34-0, or down by 34 points. 2 games in 3 years. The Bruins, a winless team on the road against a top 20 unbeaten Washington State Cougars team who was putting up numbers and always scoring. UCLA, we all know it, down 32 on the road against a ranked opponent while winless, comes back to beat Washington State 67-63. Down 32 points in the third, where Washington State was up 18 points in half. A game where UCLA was up 7-0. They had a 10-7 lead after the first quarter, and then Washington State blitzed them, outscoring them 28-7 in the second quarter. Well, UCLA scored 29 points in the fourth, 2 special teams touchdowns between the likes of Demetric Felton, who had a 94-yard catch for a touchdown, who had a kickoff return for a touchdown. You had a Kyle Phillips punt return for a touchdown. And then finally, with a minute remaining, it was a 15-yard pass from DTR to Demetric Felton that sealed the deal for a UCLA game that was unbelievably bonkers. Now, you can take your poison over, you can choose, it's not even poison, you can choose your life-giving juice, whatever it is. UCLA beating Texas A&M doesn't count in my book because this isn't a Pac-12 memory, but beating Washington State at their place when they were hyped to upset them down 32 in the most unlikely of victories, where DTR threw for over 500 yards. Demetric Felton had 150 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, not including his 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, and a 69-yard return touchdown for Kyle Phillips in the return game. The Bruins were down 11 heading into the fourth. 30 seconds in, touchdown 2-point conversion. Then 4 minutes later, Washington State goes back up by 10, 56-46, already an absurd score. Less than 2 minutes later, UCLA on the board, down 3. Less than 40 seconds later, with 7.5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, UCLA up 60-56 because of Kyle Phillips' return touchdown. Then you add in 50 seconds to a minute later, a 65-yard touchdown pass from Anthony Gordon to his receiver to go back up 63-60. And finally, a touchdown with a minute remaining set the stage for a UCLA victory in the most unlikely of fashions in a packed house in Pullman, and the Bruins got the job done. That has to be the 1-2 combo of craziest games ever against the former Pac-12 schools in the most unlikely of scenarios going into that. Down 9 in the bottom of the ninth, down 32 in the third as a winless team on the ranked team against a ranked team on the road. Unheard of. As UCLA came back for the second time in 3 years, down 30+ points. Completely different team, completely different coaching staff, different quarterback in DTR compared to Josh Rosen in his third year. And for UCLA to force 6 wazoo turnovers, have 28 first downs, over 650 yards of offense, were able to outduel Anthony Gordon's 9 passing touchdowns and 570 yards of offense. The Bruins' miraculous comeback. 6 forced turnovers, man. That is just nuts. Absolutely nuts. As we wrap up this episode, kind of part one of a couple-part series where we look back at the best memories in the Pac-12 against Pac-12 opponents. And we say, so long, farewell to Arizona State. So long farewell to our mountain friends in Utah and Colorado, and of course, our Pac-12 remnants in Oregon State, Washington State. We look forward to Big Ten days, but we'll talk next about UCLA football practice, Big Ten tournament updates, and hey, we'll talk Cal and Stanford because those schools never seem to go away. ACC versus Big Ten rivals. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.